Points. Hola. I know, crazy. A Spanish greeting from a woman who, although she may not look like it, is indeed half Mexican. Growing up, I always had to tell people, because of my name, no, I'm not a Mexican boy. That was my bio. It might even still be my bio on some of my social media accounts, but it was my bio across all of my platforms for a very large chunk of my life. Having a name like Tyler Sanchez as a woman, I really do think is one of those contributing factors that shaped me to who I am today, and some of the personality traits and characteristics that I carry around with me, I think are because of my name. And it's really sad to admit it now. I'm laughing because, again, I laugh at everything eventually. And so I'm laughing at it now, but it's sad to think about in the past. I was so ashamed of who I was that I actually refused to take Spanish in high school. Now, before everybody starts yelling at me, let me explain. I'm half Mexican, half white. I don't really fit in to any particular category. And so growing up for me, my one value, looking back, was to be cool. More than anything in the world, I just wanted to be cool. I just wanted to fit in. And I didn't want to be bullied. I didn't want to be picked on. I didn't want any sort of drama like that. And so rather than being told I wasn't good enough, I refused to partake, which it is pretty crushing trying to learn languages as an adult. So if you're a child and you're listening to this and you have the opportunity to learn a language that you're interested in, do it now. Do it while your brain is like silly putty. You know, it's moldable. You can get it in there. It's not impossible when you're an adult. It's not. It's really not. You just have to be willing to show up and put the time in. And I think the older we get, the more options we have to fill our time. And so it can be difficult to say, I'm going to prioritize learning a second language or a third language or a fourth language for all you overachievers out there. I'm proud of you. Thank you for showing up. Communication is important. I would love to be able to communicate to some of my family members in, a language that is a part of our ancestry. It's a part of our history to be able to communicate in different ways and use different languages. And so I'm gonna tell you straight up right now, I am not actively pursuing anything. I do have some apps on my phone, but I haven't been doing that because I've been working on other stuff. One, like starting this podcast. You're welcome. But it's on my radar. And I think for me, if I incorporate it into some of my values and I look at my goals, I'll realize that learning Spanish is a part of it. And I'm starting to accumulate some friends in my close proximity who speak Spanish. So, maybe we'll get a little bit more comfortable. Maybe we'll be able to speak it eventually. But it's just, we have to take things one step at a time and really just forget about the staircase. Because the staircase, it can be so daunting to look at a whole entire staircase and think, I've got to go all the way up there. What? That is so far. That's so steep. I cannot help. But if we just take it one step at a time, one stair at a time, we could be to the top before we even know it. And so, let's go ahead and jump into the fundamental phrase for the week. It is, now is all there ever is. Now, right now, is all there ever is. And Gwen Stefani had a great song where she was literally just saying, what you waiting, what you waiting, what you waiting, what you waiting, what you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Is there actually a reason that you're waiting? Is it your appointment doesn't start for 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Or are you racking up that list of excuses? Because we all do it. We all rack up excuses and we say that we're going to do something and then we don't. The truth is, now is all we ever have, right? And golly, the very first thing when this fundamental phrase was selected for the day, I immediately was transported back to being in the car with my family, my immediate family, so my mom, dad, and sister. And it was when hashtags first came out. Do you guys remember when hashtags first came out? Not as it like the pound sign on your phone, that has always been a thing, my young friends and folk, but to utilize the hashtag in social media to actually tag things, to reference things, when that first came out, because that was not always a thing, people did not speak in hashtags. I remember my sister and I were on a road trip with my parents, and we were sitting in the back just hashtagging things. So we were like, hashtag blue sky, hashtag tree, hashtag car, hashtag road trip, hashtag family fun. And my dad is like, what is a hashtag? And hashtag YOLO was like, became huge, right? But we explained it to my dad and we said, Dad, a hashtag, it's something that you want to reference. It's kind of like an afterthought. So if you post a picture and you're like, had a fun day at the beach, then you could be like, hashtag beach, hashtag fun, hashtag swimsuit, whatever you want. Horrible hashtags, but whatever you want to do it, Dad, that's how you hashtag. We did not know that in that moment, we were creating a monster. Because then my dad says, well, what does YOLO mean? The inception of YOLO and hashtags were eerily similar, if not the same. And so we explain, you only live once. YOLO, father, it means you only live once. And just honestly, that moment of like seeing him put the pieces together, gold, comedy gold. It gets better. For probably the next year or two, or maybe even 3, I don't even know how long after we told my father what a hashtag was and what YOLO was, he started putting hashtag YOLO in every single one of his text messages. It'd be like, yo dude, what are you doing? I love you. I hope you have a good day. Hashtag YOLO. And there is a level of truth to YOLO. And I'm not saying go out and like live your YOLO life where, I don't know, I feel like there was a lot of kids that went out and did some really crazy things that you can't take back. I think that while recognizing that we only have one life and that now is all there ever is, there is a delicate line that you walk where you have to recognize that there are some things that you cannot take back. there are some things that you cannot undo. I'm sorry, but if you get arrested for throwing a crazy party or doing something like that, like, it will go on your record. Unless you have a good lawyer and you can get that sort of stuff expunged from your record, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So although we need to recognize that this moment is all that we have, we don't need to go out and do a bunch of crazy things that put our lives in jeopardy, that put other people's lives in jeopardy. The way that this fundamental can be applied in maybe a less catabolic or destructive way could be, you know, to recognize that we don't have to carry all of the things from our past. That we don't have to carry all of our worries about the future in this moment. And there are so many images online that you can find of, you know, people carrying rocks that are of the past and of the present and of the future, and how exhausted they looked holding all of these things. And then you see another image of them with the past set down and the future set down, and they're just holding the present rock. And the weight of that being lifted, you see them. They're like, I've got this. I can do this. Because honestly, when we're not holding on to everything else, when we're not giving the death grip, there's room for us to be able to move forward. There's the capacity mentally to be able to process and feel what is happening in the moment. We can choose how we show up in those moments because, alas, here we are. And a real life YOLO example for you all is, honestly, this podcast intro. I kicked around the can on this podcast. Oh my gosh, my friend will tell you, oh my gosh, every time I'm on the phone with my friend, he would be like, oh, have you started that podcast yet? For years. Oh, you're still talking about doing that podcast, huh? Oh, yeah. And for me, I was just racking up excuses over here. I was like, well, I don't know how to edit a podcast, and I don't know how to record a podcast, and I don't have an intro for my podcast. So just one thing after another thing after another thing was all adding up, and I just didn't do it. For years and years and years, I let this pile of things that I told myself that I didn't know how to do deter me from doing something that I wanted to do for so long. So when I decided to start this solo podcast, again, I was waiting for that intro. The intro was the final thing. I was like, you know what? I have already gone viral, and I know how to show up. I know how to be a presence. I know how to speak. That's nothing new for me. I just have to play around. I just have to open my mind and open that door to learning and allow myself to figure it out. There is so many people these days who are so unwilling to just figure it out. Take a stab at it. Give it a try. Give it a swing. And it's such a damn shame. It's such a shame because we're able to create such beautiful things when we try to apply ourselves. And this podcast intro is constantly stuck in my head now. How I created this podcast intro is not nearly as glamorous as one might think. I was standing in my office in front of my microphone, and I had my little egg shaker. And I shook my little egg on beat, and at first it was just me and a little egg shaker, and I recorded that. Then I went in and I layered in my first vocal. Then I went in and layered another vocal over that. And I was honestly just playing around with my voice. I had a vision, right? The idea for me behind Broad Points I love it. There's just so much depth in Broad Points. And so my vision for the podcast intro was I wanted it to seem kind of chaotic in the beginning, broad, expansive. So that's the layering of the multiple broads that you hear. And although I may have a wide variety of topics, I usually do get to one point, which is why I had it filter from all of the broads, trickling into just one point. And that was just playing, you guys. I'm not a professional. I didn't go to school to be able to record things and sing things and shake an egg shaker. Never in my life. Never. I just show up. I just play around with it. I just take one step at a time. And if you're looking for a belief to get you there, I mean, think about all of the crazy things that Walt Disney has created. And one of, I think, everybody's childhood favorite rides at Disneyland, at least in my family, I know a lot of kids love this too, that have gone to Disneyland, is It's a Small World. It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. And when you go into It's a Small World After All, and I think maybe even when you're in line, if you look at the screws alone of Disneyland, they'll have Mickey Mouse's little head on them in there. The attention to detail, to have the branding on the little tiny screws of everything we're looking at. Some may say impossible. It's impossible to get that level of detailing done on that scale too, right? Those things are not small. It's not like we built a drawer and the drawer had Mickey Mouse on it. No, all of Disneyland, right? You're transported into another world. A belief that Walt Disney held, you guys, is it's fun to do the impossible. I love that. I love that so much. It is fun to do the impossible. And to think about all of the things that Walt Disney accomplished just by honestly wanting to have fun, right? People told Walt, no, not possible. You can't do that. And just for funsies, he decided to prove them wrong. At a certain point in my life, I got tired of the voices in my head telling me that everything was impossible. Even things that I had accomplished, my mind was like, no, you didn't really do that. That's not real. Give yourself the credit. You know, and honestly, wherever you're at in your life right now, in your journey towards whatever your goal is, if you have a goal, maybe you don't have a goal, maybe you're still trying to find a vision. Wherever you're at, meet yourself there. There's no point in telling yourself, oh, I'll catch you when you're 25 pounds lighter or when you're significantly more focused. No. Hey, you, right now, you're great. You're doing great. Meet yourself right here, right now. What do you want in this moment? What is pulling you? What goals do you have that you want to achieve? And I'm not saying that you have to run there. I'm not saying that you have to sprint there as fast as you possibly can. I'm just curious. What might that first step be to get you there? To get you just a little bit closer. And give yourself some grace. Give yourself the time. Be patient. Patience is a virtue. And it is a hard one to learn. But again, it's a practice. And just know that before you know it, you'll be at episode 11. Oh my gosh, is this episode 11? You don't say. Yes, it is. Episode 11 of this podcast, you guys. We just started with 1. I wasn't thinking, oh, I need to create 700 podcasts. No, I just said, I'm just going to start with 1. And before that, I just started with the intro. And now we have an intro that you hear every episode. Hooray! It could be as simple as that, or it could be as lengthy as the sun, taking 11 years to complete a full rotation. Some things are literally one step. Other things, they take time. Allow yourself the rotation. If you want to flip your life around, allow yourself the time that it takes to make that rotation. Right? Meet yourself where you're at and just follow the journey along. And if honestly you really can't do something in that moment, schedule it. Put it in your calendar. Because for me, I know that if it's in my calendar, I will do it. If I commit myself to the idea of something, if I tell myself, hey, I want to get this done, I set time aside for it. I don't let anything else invade into that time, and I get it done. So if not now, when? When will you do it? But don't carry it around with you. Again, this is like the worry time thing, right? If we set time for worry time, we don't have to worry throughout the whole day. If you set dedicated time for your goals, for your values, for your vision, you don't have to worry about it all day. You're available to put 100% of your energy into each thing you do, right? Into each conversation you have, you can be present, you can listen. You can actually have an exchange. We are more effective when we are in the moment. And so, try this phrase out, you guys. Just like every other week. And if you've been listening to all of the other weeks, the other 10 weeks that we have already passed, thank you so much. I am so grateful that you are here. I am so grateful that you are continuing on this journey with me and that we get to share in these moments because truly now is all we ever have. So don't forget, rate, review, like, subscribe on any and all platforms that you listen to. And one final time, now is all there ever is.